Hey guys, what's going on? It's been a while since I've been able to do a tutorial, but I'm going to do one for you guys now. I've been making, as you know, a bunch of bigger stamps, and a lot of people are concerned about whether they'll be able to use them with or without a press. I mean, obviously you can use it with the press if you have one. If you don't need to stress out about going and getting one if you can't afford it right now. A lot of the stamps that I've showed the impressions of, I only use a hammer, and I'm going to demonstrate that for you now. So here is one of the biggest problems most people run into, and I say it all the time, is not annealing their metal. This is a scrap of 16 gauge copper, and it's been work hardened because it's been run through the mill. So you can see, trying to bend it, I can, but I'm really giving it some strength to get it to bend. Same thing's going to happen with the metal from your stamp when you're trying to make an impression. It's going to be hard for it to just get a smooth, easy impression. You're going to work at it. You're going to get the force from the anvil or bench block that you're stamping on shooting back up, which in turn is most likely going to make you bounce and get a double stamp or a ghost stamp, whatever you want to call it. So basically, first step, all of my containers are like really huge and hard to get into the video, so I'm just going to use this little container with some water to show you how I will anneal them. So like I said, 16 gauge copper. Basically I'll heat it up. You won't be able to tell in the video until I get a really low, almost a medium glow. You can tell because you'll start to see it go and oxidize, and it'll start turning colors, and then it'll start turning blackish, grayish color, and then it'll get really dark, but in a low light you'll be able to see it kind of glow a little bit. But you don't want to fry your metal. If you're burning it up really hot and quenching it, you're not going to get it as soft. You're going to end up, in a sense, crystallizing the metal, and it's just going to get really brittle over time. So I just have a benzomatic torch for this. Wear safety gloves if you don't have long tongs or anything like that. I burn myself like 300 times a day, so I don't even have nerve endings in my hands anymore, so I'll be alright. You can see the color change. Rainbow color is starting to go away. Now it's a grayish. Then it's going to start turning to a darker gray. Now I'm going to evenly heat it. About right there is good to me. I can see a little bit of a glow. Just dunk it in some water. Or you can air quench it. I mean, if you're in a hurry, dunk it in water. It's going to anneal it. But if you have some time on your hands and you don't feel like getting right into it, you can anneal a whole bunch of your projects prior to working on them and just let them kind of air cool overnight or whatever, or for a couple hours or an hour or so. So now, without trying to bend it too much, because I want to use this to make some stamp impressions, you can see now that it's like butter. I barely have to give any, I'm barely giving it pressure and it's already starting to bend. This is really soft now. So let me kind of dry this off a little. Alright, so I made 3 stamps today. These just got heat treated, so they're ready to work. These are 1 inch roughly. I mean, once I start taking some of the excess metal off, the exact dimensions change, but this is each one of these is roughly 1 inch by a ½ inch. The bar stock itself is 1 inch wide by a ½ inch thick, so roughly around 1 by 1/2 inch. Okay, so let's start doing some stamping. I did a practice one. I always test my stamps before I send them out, and this is the practice. These 2 were 1 strike, and I got a great impression. This center one I thought was going to give me a couple of strikes I was going to need to do, and it's really intricate, so I was a little bit like hesitant at first with trying to just get the impression right with 1 strike, but I only took 1 good sized strike with a 3-pound hammer on a super annealed piece of 16 gauge copper, and I got a really great impression with just 1 strike. So I'm gonna demonstrate that for you now, and hope I don't goof, smash my finger or something on camera. So basically, say we have it lined up or whatever, You know, you have your markings for your border, or however you want to do it. We'll just pretend I'm on that line that I have either scribed or marked. So at this point I'll stand up so I can kind of be over my piece. And with my anvil I have here, I'm going to have it dead in the center because that's where I'm going to get the most, it's going to be the most solid for me. I don't know if that's a mental thing for myself, but I always feel like it works better. So you kind of, this is a 3-pound hammer. You want to kind of chalk up on the handle a bit, but not where you're right here, because you're basically driving the force of this hammerhead down like with your body, instead of letting, you know, Newton's law kind of come into effect on its own. So chalk up just a little bit, and then we'll see if I can get it again with just one nice good strike. Yep. And because it's not patinaed or darkened or anything like that, you won't really be able to see it that well, but there we go. Let me try to get some of that sunlight. You can see that it's got a nice even impression. And if you wanted to make it deeper, you totally can. What you're gonna do is this stamp is gonna lock back into place because the impression's already basically there. So what I tend to do is I'll rock back towards me first, just a little bit. First I make sure that it's locked in there. You can try to slide this around, it's not gonna go because all of those pieces are locked back into the negative ends of the stamp. So now that I have it locked in, I'll lean back towards me a little bit. And this part you don't even have to hit really hard. You just kind of give it an extra little tap and you've got a much deeper impression. Go back here on the other side, tilt it off to the back right corner. Nice deep impression. Lock it back in, rock off to the side a little bit, away from you. Lock back in, a little off to the side. There you go. And then usually at this point, you can either take a rawhide mallet or a rubber mallet. I don't have one of those on hand right now. So I'll just lightly tap it to kind of flatten it out. And I don't use this much for stamping, as you can see the surface. This is strictly for blacksmithing. I use this for smaller stuff, like blades and stuff like that. I use my bigger one for making conchos. So I wouldn't use this for stamping because for the most part it'll kind of mar my surface. But anyways, so now if you take a look at it, just take a little top layer of that oxidation off. It'll help show the impression a little bit better. But now you can see it's a nice deep even impression. I didn't use a press, I only used a hammer, and I'm not hitting it super hard to where I'm having to use like an excessive amount of my strength to do it. I'm letting the tool do the work for me and gravity kind of play its role in the process. Instead of driving the hammerhead down and being really tense and nervous, you just get a firm grip with your stamp holding hand. You pull the hammer back and you almost just let it drop with some guidance. You give it a little bit of assistance and it's going to do the work for you. This is 3 pounds swinging into the piece instead of you taking that 3 pounds and pushing it down. You know, you're getting more force when you just kind of swing it and let it drop on its own. So let's take another stamp. I like this one here. It's kind of like a butterfly concho with one of the star and diamonds patterns that I have been making in the center. But this one's pretty cool. So we'll go ahead and get up here again and do another one. Same thing, rest it down, start off with my initial strike. And there you go. That alone will be a perfectly fine impression. Technically, I could have even annealed this again before doing that, which usually I would have, but for the sake of time, I'm not. And once again, you want to make it deeper. I would say anneal it, because at this point, it's going to start getting work hardened for me flattening it out and putting the big impressions and stuff. Every time you're working a stamp into the metal or flattening out, you're doing what's called work hardening, which is taking it from an annealed state, a softened state, changing the molecular level of the metal and making it hard again. So we'll lock back into place, and the impression is super even all the way around, so it locks right back in. Start from the bottom. strike. Lock back in, rock my way up, away from me, strike. Now I can rock off to the sides a little bit to get the sides deeper. Next side. Maybe a little more in the center. Voila. Perfect. It's a nice, clean, deep impression just with a 3-pound hammer. And that is a heavy hammer, but tensing up and holding it and trying to force the weight down only makes it heavier. If you kind of just lift it up, let it kind of balance at a nice pivot point, it's not so much of a problem that even somebody that has like some carpal tunnel or arthritic type problems in their hands won't be able to handle. If you are financially capable and it's in your budget or whatever, if you need a press, get a press. It makes life a lot easier, to be honest with you, because it's put it in, pull a handle, impression done, start banging them out all day long if you want. But if you like that primalistic, hammer to chisel type feel, it's completely doable with these bigger stamps. So I'm going to go through and anneal this one more time in the center and quench it so I can show you guys this dragonfly that I had made. So once again, we'll see the oxidation start to take place. There we go. You're going to start getting a rainbow here pretty quick. There we go. Then it's going to turn a grayish color. There it is. And then it's going to get dark. Right when you start getting to that dark area is when you're pretty close to getting to the point right there that you want. You can drop it in your water. And you're annealed. You dry it off again really quick. Super soft, nice. And then here we go, dragonfly. Go along with the butterflies I've been making. I had a dragonfly flying on my yard for the first time that I've noticed in a long time. I usually get butterflies and stuff and lizards, but today I got a dragonfly, so I made a dragonfly. All right, line it up in the center. Firm grip with the left hand. Bring this up and let it do its job, the hammer. Okay, we got one side down. Lock it back in. There we go. All right, this one is a wider stamp with a lot less of a relief cut to it, so it's a lot flatter. It's going to take a little more effort to get it in, but it still will work fine. There we go. Lock it back in. Rock it out. Rock it out, you know what I mean? Rock it out. Back in the center. Looking good to me, and now I'm going to rock off a little bit on the sides. At this point, you could anneal it again, just to make sure you get an even impression. I'm comfortable with not doing that, so I'm not going to. There's that side. Lock it back in. Off to the side. Side to side. Boom. There we go. Now I'll flatten it out a little bit so that we can see the shadows. Don't mind if there's any marring or anything. I'm not going to use these for jewelry or anything. This is just strictly to show what I'm making. So those are the 3 stamps I made today. Can't beat it. They work great. You can do it with a hammer. You can do it with a press. You can do it with whatever you want, but they work good. They make a clean impression. Don't be afraid of using a hammer. That's been one of the #1 questions I've been getting online is, can I use this with a hammer? Yes, you can. You see me do it. Yeah, I'm a bigger guy, but that doesn't mean I'm using much strength to do it, because I'm really not. My wife could do the same thing if she wasn't holding the camera, but she is, so. Yeah, so don't be afraid to take on some of these bigger stamps. It's really just trial and error. Buy copper sheet thick gauge copper sheet and just mess it up. You know, don't worry about getting a perfect one each time. Get the feel of a stamp. That's what I do. As you've seen in a post previously, I bought about 10 feet of 16 gauge copper sheet so I can strictly just not worry about messing what little bit of scrap metal I have up. So in the next tutorial I'm going to show you guys again on how to clean stamps, because where we live, we're right around the corner from the beach. The air here is super salty and acidic, so it starts to eat away at the carbon content in the steel and cause it to rust a bit. So whether we oil them right away and polish them up, there's a chance by the time we're packaging them, a little bit of that moisture in the air will get to your stamp, and sometimes the shot plates or stamps or something show up a little bit rusty. Each one is clean and polished. These haven't yet been cleaned and polished. I just heat treated them and I clean the surface to test them, and then I clean them in case I need to make any adjustments. I haven't gone through the whole cleaning process already. But they'll all be cleaned, oiled, and it's shipped out. Sometimes they show up a little bit rusty, but luckily I have a couple of stamps of my own personal collection that I decided I would leave out for a couple of nights in the super moist, salty Santa Barbara air, and I guarantee you that you guys' stamps aren't going to get rustier than this. I'm going to clean this guy for you and get it nice and shiny and looking really good and brand new and show you guys how to do that, and that'll be in my next video.